Welcome to Life Stories, where a single moment can shatter everything you thought was safe. Imagine saving every penny for months to buy your mom the perfect birthday gift, only to end up in handcuffs for the color of your skin. This isn't a story about shoplifting. It's a story about power, perception, and the quiet violence of being judged before you're ever heard. What happens when the person you humiliate turns out to be the daughter of someone you should never have crossed? And what happens when that daughter decides she won't stay silent? Stay with us, because what unfolds next is not just about justice. It's about the courage to rewrite the rules. Let's begin. The boutique smelled of jasmine and polished oak, a calculated blend meant to whisper elegance into the bones of anyone who walked through its tall glass doors. Lux 38 was the kind of place where women came to feel powerful, where high-end fashion met curated lighting and hushed voices. And Ava Reynolds, 14, stood at the threshold, clutching $450 in carefully folded bills inside her purse, like it was a passport into another world. It wasn't. Not today. Ava's sneakers squeaked against the marble floor as she stepped inside, her eyes widening at the rows of emerald, obsidian, and ivory gowns that shimmered beneath spotlight halos. She'd spent 3 months saving that money, babysitting, cleaning cars, skipping frozen yogurt with friends, all so she could buy the perfect birthday dress for her mother, Jordan Reynolds. A woman Ava saw not just as her mom, but as the entire blueprint of what strength looked like. What Ava didn't know was that she had just entered the lion's den, and the lion was watching. Susan Whitaker stood behind the register in a blazer that cost more than most mortgages, her hair pulled tight, her gaze tighter. She watched Ava like a hawk watches prey that doesn't belong in the sky. No warm welcome, no offer of help, just a nod toward the back. "Dresses are over there." Ava didn't flinch. She smiled. "Thank you." She walked carefully, respectfully, knocked fingers brushing fabric the way a pianist grazes keys, tender, curious, reverent. But the eyes on her never softened. They followed, measured, judged. What Susan didn't know, what made her mistake so poetic, was that the girl she was circling like a threat was the daughter of the very woman who signed her paycheck. But power, when worn like armor instead of responsibility, makes people blind, especially when it's laced with prejudice. In the shadows near the accessory wall, Kayla Freeman, a young sales associate, watched the scene unfold with a gnawing pit in her stomach. She'd seen this before. Not just here. Everywhere. A white woman managing blackness like it's something to be monitored. And Kayla, afraid of being fired, afraid of speaking up, kept folding scarves and biting her tongue. Ava found the dress. It was the one she'd bookmarked, the one she'd imagined her mom in as she blew out 40 birthday candles, emerald green with delicate beading along the collarbone. It looked like royalty sewn into fabric. She held it with both hands and walked to the counter. "I'd like to try this on, please." Susan didn't move. Her eyes dropped to the dress, then to Ava's hoodie and sneakers. "That dress is $400, she said flatly, as if Ava hadn't just spoken English. Ava opened her purse and revealed the money. Organized, counted, stacked. "I have the money. I saved for months." Susan leaned forward, narrowing her eyes. "Where did you get this?" A pause, a flash of something dark flickering behind her tone. "I earned it." "I don't believe you." Ava's face paled, her voice softening. "I can show you the envelope. My bank. I can call my mom." "No," Susan snapped. "This isn't a playground. You're trying to steal, aren't you?" Ava blinked. "What? No, You slipped something into your pocket. I saw you." "You're lying," Ava whispered, and for the first time there was steel in her voice. That was when Susan dialed 911. By the time the police cruiser rolled up in front of Lux 38, the boutique was humming with tension. Kayla stood frozen. Emma Lynn, a white teen shopping for prom, had started filming. Ava was sobbing now, handcuffed in the back seat, her money scattered on the boutique floor like a shredded dream. Across the city, in a sleek boardroom atop Ren Lux's headquarters in Manhattan, Jordan Reynolds was making history. Dressed in slate gray silk and confidence, she was presenting a $50 million expansion that would bring jobs to underserved communities. Her voice didn't waver as she fielded questions from investors, including one particularly smug skeptic named Richard Blackstone, who had always made it clear that he didn't believe a black woman should be running a fashion empire. And then her phone buzzed. It buzzed again. 12 missed calls. A text notification. From Ava. "Mommy, please help me. They're arresting me and I didn't do anything. I'm at Lux 38. Jordan didn't even say a word. She rose. The chair scraped backward. The room fell silent. Emergency. Personal. Meeting's over. "Jordan," Richard called after her. "You can't just walk out." She turned, eyes sharp as shattered crystal. "Watch me." By the time she reached the boutique, the sidewalk was swarming with reporters. A small crowd had gathered, murmuring, filming. Kayla had finally found her courage and was speaking to a Channel 7 reporter about what she'd seen. And Ava, Jordan's baby girl, was still locked in a police cruiser, cheeks streaked with tears. Jordan didn't yell. She didn't scream. She walked. Purposefully. The way you do when you are both a mother and a storm. "Unlock the car," she said to the officer, who had started to recognize her face from the donation gala last month. "That's my daughter. And this is over." Susan stepped forward, trying to assert authority, but the look on Jordan's face stopped her cold. "Who do you think you are?" Susan hissed. Jordan handed her a business card. Susan read the name. Her mouth opened, then closed. Ava Reynolds. Ren Lux. Owner. Her knees buckled slightly. Inside the store, the security footage played on the big screen. Ava never stole anything. Not a touch out of place. Not a tag unscanned. Kayla's phone recording added the soundtrack. Susan's voice, sneering, dismissive, cruel. The crowd outside grew. The news cycle ignited. Susan was fired, publicly, immediately. The officer was suspended, pending an internal investigation. But Ava walked back into the store with her mother. Head high, shoulders straight. She picked up the emerald dress again, and this time, no one stopped her. How would you have responded if this happened to your child? Have you ever witnessed someone being judged before they had a chance to speak? Because just when the world thought Ava Reynolds was finished, her story was only beginning, and the next chapter would make headlines. The dress was heavier than Ava remembered. Heavier with meaning, with everything it now carried. As Ashley zipped her into the emerald green gown in the quiet of the boutique's dressing room, Ava caught her own reflection and blinked. She didn't look like the terrified girl from an hour ago. She looked older, like she'd crossed an invisible threshold, one she hadn't asked for. Jordan stood just outside the curtain, her voice soft but firm as she spoke with Dr. Camille Brooks, who had arrived moments ago. Camille had been Madison's pediatrician once. Now she was here to assess trauma, to determine what invisible wounds might have already begun to settle beneath Ava's skin. "She's composed," Jordan whispered, "but something in her eyes isn't." Camille nodded. "That's how it begins." Back in the fitting room, Ava was quiet. The fabric against her skin no longer felt like celebration. It felt like survival. A symbol that something had been stolen from her innocence, and no amount of money could buy it back. Ashley offered her a soft smile. "You look beautiful, Ava." Ava didn't smile. "Do I look like someone who belongs here now?" Ashley swallowed hard. "You always did." Outside, the press conference was starting. Journalists jostled for position, microphones and cameras drawn to the spectacle unfolding at Lux 38 like moths to fire. Jordan had stepped to the podium, placed hastily in front of the boutique's now locked doors. Her voice, calm as ever, sliced through the chatter. "What happened to my daughter was not a misunderstanding," she said. "It was a direct result of embedded bias, unchecked authority, and the silent complicity that allows these moments to repeat themselves across this country." Behind her, the now former store manager, Susan Whitaker, was escorted out by private security, her face pale, mascara bleeding into the fine lines she could no longer hide behind professionalism. But the real twist hadn't come yet. That evening, as Ava sat curled on the living room couch, freshly showered and in oversized sweats, Camille knelt beside her with a clipboard and a kind gaze. "Sweetheart," she said gently, "I'd like to ask you a few questions about how you're feeling. It's okay if you don't know the answers yet." Ava nodded. "Did you feel scared when they put you in the car?" Ava hesitated. "Not at first. I thought it was a mistake. Like, once they realized I didn't do anything, they just stop. And when they didn't, I stopped feeling like a person, Ava said quietly. I started feeling like a problem. Jordan had been standing in the doorway, silent, but now her hand went to her mouth. That word, problem, struck something deep, something buried from her own childhood that she'd tried so hard to protect Ava from. Camille continued, has anything like this ever happened before, even on a smaller scale? Ava's face changed, almost imperceptibly. I mean, not like this, she said. But sometimes teachers assume I'm cheating when I get the highest score. One time a substitute told me to prove I was in honors math, and when Mom and I go into certain stores, I can feel people watching her. Watching us. But this is the first time someone actually said it out loud. Said what? You don't belong here. That night, long after Ava had gone to sleep, Jordan sat alone at the kitchen island with her laptop glowing in front of her. She was supposed to review contracts, investment memos, but her fingers hovered over a different tab, her inbox. A new message had come in, from a senior producer at 60 Minutes. They wanted to do a segment. She should have been thrilled. But Jordan hesitated. Was she ready to put her daughter's trauma on national television? Would that create change or exploit pain? The conflict wrapped around her like smoke. As CEO, she was a force, undeniable, strategic, revered. But as a mother, she felt cornered, vulnerable, terrified of doing the wrong thing. The door creaked behind her. Ava appeared in the hallway, bathed in moonlight, her face soft and sleepy. Mom, Jordan turned. What is it, baby? Ava looked down, then back up, her voice a whisper. I don't want her to get away with it. I don't want this to happen to someone else. Jordan blinked. You don't have to do anything you're not ready for. I know, but if people are listening now, maybe we should say something. Jordan stood and crossed the room, pulling her daughter into her arms. And that was the moment the power shifted, not from mother to daughter, but between them. Equal, steady, a unified force. The next morning, Jordan called her attorney, then her communications director, then the civil rights organization she'd once donated to, now asking for their help. And before noon, it was official. Ava Reynolds would speak publicly for the first time about what happened inside Lux 38. But not in a press room. She was going back to the store, to stand where she had been humiliated, and to speak from the very floor where her voice had once been silenced. What would you do if your child asked to turn their own trauma into action? Would you protect their innocence or empower their voice? Because as the cameras began to arrive at Lux E38 for a second time, no one could have predicted what Ava was about to reveal and whose name she was about to say. The sky above Lexington Avenue was overcast, as if the city itself were bracing for what was coming. Inside Lux 38, the lighting had been adjusted to feel warmer, more human. Gone were the sterile, curated spotlights. In their place were softer tones, deliberately chosen to feel like truth, not performance. The boutique had been closed for the day, but the doors were not locked, because this time, the world had been invited in. Ava Reynolds stood near the very rack where it had all begun. She wore a simple navy dress, her hair pulled back in a style her mother had once called her thinking look. She held no notes, no script, just a microphone, a trembling breath, and the weight of hundreds of thousands of eyes watching, live. Jordan stood to the side, arms crossed tightly, the executive in her disguised as a mother, barely holding it together. She had let Ava lead this. Against every instinct to shield her, she had stepped back, because Ava hadn't just survived what happened, she had chosen to confront it. I want to tell you what it felt like, Ava began. Her voice was calm, clear. It felt like my skin erased everything else about me. Like the moment I walked into the store, I wasn't a customer, I was a threat. She looked around the room, not just at the cameras, but at the people standing in the back. Reporters, advocates, students, store owners from across the city who had come because they knew what this moment meant. It wasn't just the handcuffs, or the way she talked to me like I didn't matter. It was the fact that no one stopped it, that she thought she could lie and it would just work. She paused. Her hands were clenched now, and she shook her head slowly. But it didn't. That's when she reached into the side pocket of her jacket and pulled out a folded paper. This she said. FOMO is the policy that was in place here, the one that gave managers full discretion to report suspected theft without review. That policy doesn't exist anymore. Behind her on a newly hung wall was a framed version of the new one, drafted by Jordan and reviewed by civil rights attorneys, stating zero tolerance for racial profiling and mandatory bias reporting reviews for all incidents. Ava's voice dropped slightly. But there's something else, something I didn't tell anyone, not my mom, not the lawyers, not even Dr. Brooks. Jordan's eyes widened slightly. This wasn't in the plan. Ava looked down. When they put me in the car, I heard the officer call dispatch. He didn't just say black female. He said my name. She looked up. My full name. A silence dropped like glass shattering. I realized someone had looked me up while I was still inside. They knew who I was, who my mother was. Gasps moved through the room like wind through dry leaves. Someone called ahead before the police even arrived. In the back, one of the reporters began typing furiously. Jordan stepped forward, but Ava raised a hand, gently. That's why I'm saying this now. This wasn't just about one woman's prejudice. It was about a system, a culture, and someone in this company, someone high up, tried to hide it before it ever became public. The crowd shifted, murmured. Jordan stood frozen. Her daughter hadn't just taken the mic. She had detonated the silence. Later that day, an emergency meeting was called at Rainluck's headquarters. Ava's statement had gone viral. Millions of views, hashtags, demands for transparency. And now, Jordan had to face a brutal truth. Someone on her executive team had tried to cover it up. Emails were pulled, text logs reviewed, and 3 hours later, it surfaced. It was Richard Blackstone. He hadn't just been dismissive in the boardroom. He had made a quiet call after seeing Ava's name on a daily sales log. Not to investigate, not to help, but to protect what he called, in one now leaked email, brand optics. He'd authorized Susan to handle it discreetly, assuming Ava would leave in humiliation and the press would never find out. He'd gambled on silence and lost. Jordan terminated his contract within the hour, publicly. Her statement was firm. No amount of money, investment, or influence will ever justify the humiliation of a child, least of all mine. But that night, back at home, in the quiet that follows a storm, Ava wasn't celebrating. She sat on the balcony alone, her fingers tracing the edge of a teacup, her thoughts miles away. Jordan joined her and handed her a blanket. Cold? Ava shrugged. Empty. Jordan sat beside her. Talk to me. I thought speaking up would feel like winning, Ava said. But I still remember how I felt in that store. I still wake up hearing her voice. Jordan nodded slowly. Justice isn't peace, Ava. Sometimes it's just the first crack in the wall. Ava looked over. Do you ever stop being angry? Jordan exhaled. No, but you learn how to turn that anger into something useful, like what you did today. Ava didn't reply right away. Then she leaned her head on her mother's shoulder. I didn't want to be brave, she whispered. I know, Jordan said, but you were. And because you were, some other girl out there won't have to be. The next morning, they received a letter. It was handwritten. From Kayla Freeman. She was quitting Lux 38, but she wasn't giving up. She'd taken a job at a new community-led boutique in Harlem, one that hired and trained young women of color in fashion and business management, and she wanted Ava to be its ambassador. We're naming the internship program after you, the letter read. The Ava Initiative, for girls who walk into places they were told they didn't belong and walk out owning the room. Jordan smiled. Ava cried, and somewhere, a little part of the world changed. What part of Ava's journey moved you the most, and why? If you love this story, comment 100 below. Tell us which country you're watching from, and don't forget to share the story with a friend. Thank you for watching Life Stories.